to start with a bubbly today. This is the orange cream. They finally have it in Canada. We got this in the States, I want to say about a year ago, and they finally have it in Canada. So I'm so excited to drink this today. It's so refreshing. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, this is the orange cream one. If my camera would focus, that would be great. Okay, I'm back for episode 2 of our pregnancy exercise series. This one is going to be all about second trimester exercise. I'm going to talk you guys through a bunch of different things that you need to be aware of, things that you need to kind of work on, some modifications you can make. I'm not going to give you nearly as many exercises in this one. It's more so going to be modifications that you should make because of the things that are happening to your body. And so we're going to talk about all those things today. So this is going to be a very wordy video. So grab a fun little drink, sit down, even if you just want to like prop me up somewhere, listen to the words that I'm saying to you, absorb them through osmosis, whatever you'd like to do. If this is the first time you see my face, my name is Sydney. I'm a perinatal athletic therapist and postnatal fitness specialist. And I am currently traveling through my own perinatal journey. I just entered my 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and so I'm filming a 2nd trimester exercise video, kind of encompassing everything that happened throughout my 2nd trimester, and that happens through a lot of people. Sorry, my dog is just shaking. But on this page, we talk all things lifestyle, health and wellness, perinatal therapy, whether that's preconception, pregnancy, postpartum, and all kinds of different stuff. So if you are interested in any of the above, please feel free to subscribe and stick around for a while. Before I say anything else, I filmed a 1st trimester video that really goes through everything to do with pregnancy exercise, and I'm going to reiterate some of those points today, but I do really encourage you to go to that video. I'm going to put it in the caption below. Go to that video. I think it's just the first like 15-17 minutes or something of that video where I really talk in some depth about what happens during pregnancy, what we want to work on during pregnancy, and all of those kinds of things. So if you are interested in getting sort of the background to everything, go check out that video. All right, big old disclaimer before we start 2nd trimester stuff. Everything I say in this video is generalized. Nothing is individualized for you watching this video. Some of it will be individualized for me and the things that I experienced. But keep that in mind as we go through. Every single pregnancy is different. Everyone will experience different things throughout pregnancy. So please take some of the things I say with a grain of salt and just kind of filter through the things that make sense for you. There are going to be some things that don't make sense. There are going to be things that you should probably implement, but just keep in mind, we're all different. And so it's really hard when it comes to pregnancy exercise, pregnancy therapy, any of that kind of stuff, to give a blanket statement or blanket sort of exercises for everybody because everybody is so different. So exercise during pregnancy is extremely beneficial. There was a recent study that came out that I can put in the description below if you're interested in reading it. But this study essentially showed that exercising and resistance training throughout pregnancy has shown, I'm actually just going to read it right off my laptop, a decreased risk in higher infant birth weight, so keeping the birth weight of that baby a little bit lower, helps with gestational diabetes and managing the blood glucose throughout that time, or preventing gestational diabetes. It can be beneficial to avoid cesarean sections, alleviate and prevent common symptoms such as fatigue, back pain, SPD, pelvic pain, etc., etc. None of these things are guaranteed, but that is what the article showed. And so it is very beneficial, and it can be very beneficial to exercise during pregnancy. And this was, I think, more specifically resistance training. So there's 3 main areas that we want to focus on during pregnancy. I went into these in depth in the previous video. I won't go through them in depth here, but I just want to mention them. The first one is lumbopelvic and hip mobility. We want to keep things nice and loose and mobile. The second one is lumbopelvic and hip strength. So even though we are gaining mobility, we still want to make sure that things are strengthened, and I will talk about that a little bit more as we talk more specifically the changes that happen in your body throughout second trimester. And the third one is pelvic floor lengthening and strengthening. So making sure that our pelvic floor can easily relax, but also making sure that we have the strength in our pelvic floor to hold up our pelvic organs and everything as that extra weight is being placed downwards into our pelvis. Again, I mentioned this in the previous video, but I'm going to mention it here again. If you have never exercised in your life, you can still start during pregnancy. There is nothing that says it's dangerous to start exercising during pregnancy. Now, when I say that, I don't mean if you've never run a marathon before, you're not going to go run a marathon in second trimester of pregnancy. This just means general exercise, general resistance training, general strengthening, general mobility, all of those kinds of things. Obviously, it's not the extreme things. You're not going to go and do an Ironman in second trimester if you've never trained for it before. So there's a lot of misconceptions that say that you can't start exercising during pregnancy, or you shouldn't, or the only exercises you should do are ones you've done previously. That is not current information. You can exercise. You can do any type of exercise during pregnancy. There are very few that are actually unsafe, and I think those ones are kind of self-explanatory. Like, you're obviously not going to be wrestling in second trimester of pregnancy. I hope not. Anyways, the key is that you are comfortable, you feel safe, and you know how to modify the exercises to make them work for you. So it has to be individualized. If you are doing an exercise, it feels uncomfortable, you feel like you can't do it properly, that is something that you specifically shouldn't be doing, not that anyone during pregnancy shouldn't be doing it. So keep that in mind as we talk through, or as you see stuff on the internet. Like, there's all kinds of exercises and stuff that you're going to see on the internet. It just depends on the person. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different medical history. Everyone has a different history of exercise. So just keep that in mind when you filter through things that you see online. Okay, that's kind of the background stuff that I wanted to cover. Like I said, so much more is covered in the previous video, so please feel free to go and watch that video if you want a little bit more information. Now I want to chat a little bit about the changes that happen during second trimester. So within first trimester, which is 0 to 13 or 14 weeks, very little changes in the sense of the musculoskeletal system of your body. There's a lot of changes that are happening hormonally. There's a lot of changes that are happening in regards to what you feel. Like, there are a lot of changes happening there, but very few changes when it comes to position of your pelvis, strength or length of your muscles, like all of those kinds of things. A lot of that happens in second trimester, not first trimester. I talked about relaxin in the previous video. I want to talk about relaxin again because it is really important to understand sort of what happens with relaxin in our body. There's a misconception that relaxin will make your joints unstable. That's not what happens. Relaxin is a hormone that your body releases to allow the collagen fibers in your ligaments to be stretched or mobilized a little bit more than they normally would be in your everyday life when you're not pregnant. This is so that later on in your pregnancy, as your baby grows and as your baby prepares to exit and as your baby exits, there is more laxity within your pelvis to allow for movement of those pelvic bones to allow for baby to exit. This doesn't make you unstable. It just means that you're going to move a little bit more than you moved before. This can cause discomfort. So this can cause things like symphysis pubis dysfunction, which is that sort of rubbing on, actually, let me grab my pelvic model. I'll show you. So the symphysis pubis is right here in the center. We have ligaments on the top here and on the bottom, and then we have muscles that connect in this way, and then from the tops. So essentially what happens is, as the ligaments on the top and the bottom become a little bit more lax, allow for more movement, we get this kind of like shearing that's happening at those joints. My pelvic model doesn't move, some of them do. But imagine this part of your pelvis shifts back, this one shifts forward. We're getting a bit of a shear that's happening here. So that's one thing that can be caused by relaxin setting in. Relaxin is at its peak between 12 and 18 weeks. Your body will start to compensate for the movements that happen at those 18 weeks. So for example, if you have a little bit less movement in one side of your pelvis, the other one will start to shift a little bit more as baby continues to grow. Then we also have the back of our pelvis. So this is our SI joint. It's where our ilium connects to our sacrum. So in that little space there, we can also get sort of a shearing sensation happening there as well. So that's relaxin and what relaxin can cause. The second thing is that in second trimester, your baby will grow in length more than it will in either of the other trimesters. And so your belly will actually grow more, typically for most people, not always for everybody, will grow more and have the most changes between those 13 and 28 weeks than it will between the 28 and the 40. So between the 28 and the 40, there's just going to be more growth. It's not going to be as much of a bodily change, if that makes sense. Like your pelvis and your abdomen have already changed quite a bit. Now it's just going to continue growing outwards. Versus in second trimester, you go from a fairly normal posture and a fairly normal pelvic rotation and all of that kind of stuff to an altered posture and altered body biomechanics. The next thing we experience throughout second trimester, which gets a little worse closer to the end, is we start to have restricted movement because our belly is growing. So what I noticed, I think it was around 24 weeks, it was starting to get a little bit hard to put my shoes on. I wasn't able to lift my knee kind of straight up into my belly anymore. I had to go out to the side a little bit. So you'll definitely notice you need to alter some of the movements you're doing just because your belly is getting bigger. And so because of all of these things that we start to experience, all of these changes that we start to experience, lots of different pains and discomforts and compensations and stuff will start to set in. And this is where we start to experience that symphysis pubis dysfunction like we talked about, that SI joint discomfort, hip pain, low back pain, round ligament pain. That's a big one too. Pelvic pain and pressure, any of those sorts of things. So this is when they typically start to show up. If not, they will start to show up much later into third trimester. And the last thing we're gonna experience closer to the end of second trimester is a development of our diastasis. Diastasis recti is a big scary word that people love to use to fearmonger you. Now, I will also tag the video below that I've made in regards to diastasis, which will give you a pretty good explanation as to what happens. But you will experience, everyone's a little bit different, but between like 25 and 30 is when you're gonna start to get a little bit of that abdominal separation. So essentially what happens is you have your rectus abdominis muscle, which is your six-pack muscle, and you have this little strip of tissue that's down the center of it. As your baby grows, the baby needs somewhere to go, and baby has to go outwards because baby can't go inwards. So as baby grows and your abdominals push outwards, you're going to get a little bit of separation in those muscles. This is 100% normal. It needs to happen in order to allow for space for baby to be there. It is not the scariest thing in the world. This is something that typically goes back on its own within the first like 8 to 12 weeks. If it doesn't, there are lots of things that you can do to help support your abdominal muscles. But a lot of the exercises that we do throughout pregnancy, especially when it comes to core exercises, is to prevent any of that excessive separation of the abdominal muscles and to keep them activated so that they can hold tension across that diastasis. Now, if you are not someone who exercises regularly or you don't have an interest in exercising regularly, what I would suggest for you is make sure that you get at least a walk-in every day. Keep your legs moving, keep your pelvis moving, or biking is a good idea too, as long as it's still comfortable for you. Get some sort of movement in where one leg is moving opposite from the other. Just to keep things moving evenly from side to side as best as possible. The other thing I would suggest too is just basic mobility. And I talked about this in my previous video as well. I actually showed you how to do a handful of different mobility exercises. So feel free to go check those out. Those you can carry throughout your entire pregnancy. And I would say that would be bare minimum. It's important to keep things moving at least a little bit. But like I said, not everyone's into it. So not everyone is interested in going to the gym and lifting weights. So do what you are comfortable with, what's going to keep you happy and what's going to keep you moving just a little bit. Now I know I'm going to get some questions on some of the things that I'm going to mention here and some of the exercises I'm going to mention. I get the question all the time as to whether or not you can lie on your back during pregnancy. Now, this is, like everything else, individual. It's going to be different for everybody. Short answer, yes. You can lie on your back during pregnancy with caution. The long answer is this. When you lie on your back during pregnancy, especially as baby gets bigger, you're gonna notice this closer to the end of second trimester. But as baby gets heavier and you're lying on your back, baby is putting quite a bit of pressure on what's called your inferior vena cava, which brings blood back up to your heart. So this can cause, if you're lying on your back for too long and baby's putting too much pressure there, like I said, everyone's body is different. So some people will experience it faster than others. What you will notice with that decrease of blood flow back to your heart is that you may get a little bit lightheaded. So you might feel a little bit dizzy when you get up. When you're lying on your back, you might feel a little bit nauseous. You might feel lightheaded. You might feel dizzy. You might just feel generally unwell. This is how you know that you shouldn't be lying on your back. So it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. I have yet to encounter a patient who is unable to lie on their back for a few minutes at a time to go through an exercise. What I would suggest is just make sure that you roll over onto your left side, allow for some free flow of that blood, lay on your left side for a second, and then push yourself up from there rather than just heaving forwards to try to get up out of that position. Lying on your back for a few minutes at a time is not going to put your baby in any sort of a distress situation unless you have some sort of medical something that you've been told by your doctor, by your practitioner, whoever it is, that you shouldn't be doing that. As long as you don't experience any of the things that I mentioned, you should be fine. For every exercise you're doing, especially during pregnancy, it's very, very, very important to follow with your breathing and to include a core activation. This, both with your breathing and the core activation, will help to maintain intra-abdominal pressure and prevent any excessive pressure from going downwards or out into your back or forward into your diastasis throughout pregnancy. So we want to make sure we're breathing through all of our exercises. If we cannot breathe properly and activate our core properly throughout our exercises, the exercise is too hard and you need to find a modification. So our posture is going to begin to change throughout pregnancy for a couple different reasons. So as our belly grows, our abdominal muscles are being stretched, which means they're put in a compromised position to be able to activate properly. So typically what happens here, as our belly grows, we do this. Our abdomen rolls forward, our pelvis rotates forward. If you look at my alignment here, my hips are behind my shoulders. Typically we want our shoulders and hips to be in line with each other. This puts a lot of strain on my low back. I can even feel that just right away. This causes a lot of pulling into those round ligaments. So if you've ever had round ligament pain on the sides, this causes a lot of pulling there. This causes our glutes to be a little bit weak or put into a compromised position to be activated as well. So what we want to do here is we want to rotate our pelvis backwards. Now you can see I'm nice and lined up, shoulders down to my hips. My abdominal muscles can activate better. My glutes can activate better. My back no longer feels any strain, and my round ligaments aren't quite as stretched anymore either. So you may want to take a look at what's happening with your posture. If you're experiencing low back discomfort, if you're experiencing a really weak core, just take a look at what your posture looks like, and you may want to try, even if you just do sort of standing pelvic tilts this way, allow things to rock forward, exhale, bring back up. Inhale, exhale, bring back up. That will help to strengthen up the abdominal muscles to better support that growing baby inside of there. If that doesn't help you, and if you find that that's a little bit too strenuous for you, a belly band might not be a bad idea. It can help to hold that abdomen up a little bit more. Don't mind the literal dirtiest yoga mat of life. I found it in the back of my closet somewhere because I don't use it anymore. So a couple modifications for some exercises that we can do. The first one is one that I showed you in the previous video. It's a dead bug. So if you're doing a dead bug and you find it's just getting a little bit too hard, or you just need some modifications for it, here are a couple different ones that you can do. So the first one is, if you're just uncomfortable being on your back, then we're gonna go to a bird dog instead, which is on all fours, just like this. And this is the one where you extend one leg, extend one arm, and then back to the middle. So if you want to follow your breathing with this one, we're going to inhale, exhale, activate, inhale, exhale. So you want to be exhaling on the most difficult part of that movement. Then a couple different ones we can do. So lying on your back, if you are comfortable on your back, and if you're still pretty good with a dead bug itself, so lying on your back here, if doing a full dead bug, so full dead bug meaning one arm goes back, one leg goes back like this. If doing a full dead bug is just getting a little bit too hard, what you want to do instead is start with your legs up, and instead of extending that leg all the way straight, what we're going to do instead is just tap the heel like this. Tap and tap. And you can do this with arm movements as well. Then if that's getting really too difficult, we can just go to a lift, a drop, a drop. And again, following your breathing. So you want to move on your exhale. With lying on your back as well, in the previous video, I showed you an exercise where you put a pillow between your knees and you squeeze the pillow. That can just be done in a seated position, like I said, if lying on your back is becoming a little bit too uncomfortable. One of the things we want to start doing in second trimester, if you haven't been doing it already, is any opposite arm and leg movements. So something like a lunge is going to be really beneficial to strengthen that sort of cross pattern we talked about here in the first video. So doesn't have to be walking lunges, doesn't have to be sliding lunges, nothing like that. It can literally just be a stationary lunge. Make sure your feet are hip width apart. We don't want them directly one behind the other. And just dropping down into a squat this way. And you will feel if one side feels like it's not as stable or it's not activating as well as the other side is. The other one I want to mention is a single leg RDL. Now, I'm not talking about one where you are dropping down with a leg coming up. I'm talking about one where you have a little bit of a kickstand. So one foot is just supporting you from behind, but most of your weight should be on that front leg. And then we drop down into our RDL this way. Now you're gonna notice belly's gonna start to get in the way. So as you drop down, just go to a point where it starts to get uncomfortable and then come back up from there. We also want to maintain thoracic rotation, which is rotation kind of through our midsection and through our mid-back. We want to keep our ribs mobile and moving as much as possible. So one of the exercises I often recommend is lying on your side with your knees bent like this, arms out in front, and we are going to rotate through this way. Now I didn't give myself enough space here, so you should be able to rotate. You can rotate as far as you'd like all the way back, but you'll feel a nice stretch right here in the pecs. You'll feel a little bit of compression kind of into your ribs there, but it's a good movement. It's a good movement that we want to happen. We're also going to get a little bit into the pelvis as well. Then opposite from that movement, we have what's called a thread the needle. So this one's on all fours. And what we do here is we take one hand and we bring it through this way. So we're rotating our thoracic spine in the opposite direction. Back up and rotate through. This is also a really good position because this is what's called puppy pose, and it's a little bit of an inverted position. So it actually takes the pressure of baby off the pelvis because your belly's actually hanging down a little bit more. So while we're in this position, what you could do is you could just relax down into a puppy pose to take some of that pressure off the pelvis.